Postvention is a term that includes everything done after a suicide to help a community heal and prevent any further suicides. Faith communities and leaders can offer important postvention help. This video contains information from suicide prevention groups that might help you in your role. When a suicide occurs, family members, friends, and the community as a whole will need a central place to come together and grieve, heal, and understand. A church or other place of worship might serve as a good place to meet. But be careful not to alienate community members who do not belong to a particular faith or to any faith, or might not want to go to a place of worship because they feel angry with God. They might need time to come around. A secular meeting place for some healing activities might be a better first step. Close friends and immediate family are at a much greater risk of harming themselves after the suicide of a loved one. There remains a stigma associated with suicide that can cause shame, guilt, and embarrassment for the family and friends of someone who commits suicide. This can make the grieving process more difficult. Because of this, clergy members and leaders of communities of faith should address the issue of suicide with sensitivity, compassion, grace, and love. Beliefs about suicide vary according to different traditions of faith. Communities of faith will handle a death by suicide in different ways. The different cultures of Alaska have also developed unique ways of coping with a loss to their community by suicide. While these differences exist, all survivors of a loss to suicide need compassion and understanding during a very difficult time. Only the person who took his or her own life could ever explain the reasons why he or she chose suicide. Some people believe that a person completes suicide because of a moral weakness or character flaw, but research has shown this is not true. The National Institute of Medical Health has reported that 90% of suicides are believed to have been committed by people experiencing a mental illness that creates psychological pain they could not escape. These people are often experiencing depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, or other diagnosable mental illnesses that might not have been believed there was any option for help. Consequently, they decided to ease their psychological pain through suicide. It's important for members of the clergy and religious leaders to remember that the family, friends, and community experiencing a loss to suicide could be dealing with psychological burdens similar to those of the person who died, and those burdens can be made heavier by a loved one's suicide. It can be difficult to determine who in a community might be feeling this extra burden during the grieving process. So it's important to be careful and compassionate in the emotional, psychological, and spiritual support offered after a suicide. Avoid the standard words of comfort, such as finding a better place, being at peace, or following God's plan. Suggesting that suicide is a means of finding peace or heaven could be heard by emotionally vulnerable people as a way of easing pain and distress. An important contribution you can make in your role is to provide a memorial service. A memorial service is difficult to plan for anyone who has passed away, but services for people who have committed suicide can be especially difficult. Issues such as the particular traditions of faith regarding suicide, social stigma associated with suicide, unanswered questions, and heightened risk of suicide by survivors of the loss are all things to be considered in planning the service. Assisting the family and friends with the details of a memorial service or funeral can help ease a tremendous burden on survivors of a loss to suicide. As a member of the faith community, you can encourage constructive ways to honor a person's life and promote healing. For example, encourage the youth group of your community of faith to get involved in suicide prevention events or organize their own. Offer your place of worship as a space for friends and family to hold a fundraiser for local suicide prevention efforts. Encourage congregational events that focus on the importance of living a long, healthy, productive, honorable, and fulfilling life to honor the person who died. In the Postvention Guide, Faith Communities and Clergy chapter, you will find a more comprehensive list offering guidance and suggestions on being a part of an effective postvention plan in your community.